In the southern reaches of the ancient world, where the rivers of life and death converged, stood the kingdom of Sarathia, a civilization older than parchment, older than its own memory. Archaeologists believe Sarathia rose around 3200 BCE, thriving between two great rivers, the Arun and Tamar, whose floods shaped both harvest and faith. Stone tablets found near the riverbanks tell the story of an unnamed queen who, legend says, offered herself to the waters to save her son. One inscription reads, "The river that fed her people would one day devour its queen." She was known as Queen Narration of House Sarathia, daughter of a warrior king and a seer. Her reign began at 19, a time of drought, rebellion, and omens. Records suggest she was a reformer, abolishing debt slavery, opening temples to the poor. Yet her legacy is shrouded not in law, but in a single tragedy that defined her rule. The Chronicles of Thalra, the only surviving royal document, mention the child who was born beneath the black moon. On the night her son was born, a lunar eclipse shadowed the sky. The priests warned it was an omen. They said the heir of Sarathia would inherit not the crown, but a curse. Soon after his birth, misfortune spread. Crops rotted, wells ran red with silt, and lightning struck the royal granary. The people whispered that the prince carried the wrath of the river gods. To the people of Sarathia, a curse was not a metaphor. It was governance by fear, written in water and blood. The Arun River was more than water. It was deity. The Sarathians believed it could both nourish and destroy. When its floods failed, they offered what they cherished most. Among the offerings listed in temple carvings, livestock, grain, and, in rarest moments, royal blood. Scholars believe that during the 7th year of the queen's reign, a devastating plague struck the capital. The priests proclaimed it divine punishment. The curse of the royal child had awakened the river's hunger. In the final year of her life, Queen Narration performed the unthinkable. As the plague consumed her kingdom, she went alone to the Arun. Local chronicles say she offered her crown, her rings, and her pulse. The river, it was written, accepted her silence. By dawn, the floodwaters returned. The disease ceased. The people called it a miracle. But when the prince awoke, the queen was gone. No tomb was ever found. Only a golden diadem recovered centuries later from the riverbed, blackened by time, engraved with a single line, "Let the river remember me." When the queen vanished into the river, her son, Prince Artheon, ascended the throne. He was only 8 years old. Historical records from the Temple of Tamar describe his coronation as a day of mourning disguised as a ceremony. The priests dressed the boy in black silk. The throne was draped in reeds, a sign of the river's dominion over the crown. He ruled under the shadow of absence, explains historian Mythology. Every law, every ritual was haunted by his mother's ghost. The boy became the living echo of her sacrifice. The first decade of Artheon's rule was marked by silence. He avoided public appearances, spoke little, and refused to marry. Archaeological findings from palace archives show strange decrees written in his hand. Laws forbidding the mention of rivers, songs, or mothers in public ceremonies. He tried to erase the symbols that reminded him of her, says Dr. Halenvoss, an epigrapher who studied the tablets. But in doing so, he erased the very spirit of his kingdom. Famine returned. The Arun River receded as if resentful. In the 22nd year of his reign, the river rose higher than any flood in Sarathian memory. Whole towns were swallowed. The priests declared it vengeance, the river reclaiming what had been promised. According to the annals of the South Bank, survivors claimed to see a woman's silhouette standing within the flood, her hands lifted toward the palace. They believed the queen had returned, not to bless, but to remind. The flood retreated as suddenly as it came, leaving behind a field of bones and silt. The kingdom never recovered. Within 50 years of Queen Narine's sacrifice, the kingdom of Sarathia ceased to exist. The capital was abandoned, its people scattered. No records survive of the dynasty that followed. The last surviving inscription carved on the walls of the Temple of Arun reads, "When the river takes a soul, it never returns it, only its memory." Centuries of wind buried the kingdom beneath desert and legend. Only the river endured, winding endlessly across a silent plain, carrying secrets in its depths. In 1923, a British Indian expedition unearthed the ruins of what locals called Narindar, the city of the queen who drowned. Among the artifacts, ceremonial jewelry, royal seals, and a golden diadem engraved with the phrase translated as, "Let the river remember me." Carbon dating placed the artifacts at approximately 3100 BCE, aligning with the lost civilization of Sarathia. It blurred the line between history and myth, notes Professor Elias Rowe. For the first time, we had physical proof that the woman in the legend, the queen who offered herself to the river Zabu, may have truly lived. Every civilization writes its salvation in water, but Sarathia wrote its damnation. Among the ruins of Sarathia, archaeologists uncovered over 40 tablets sealed within clay jars known as the Tablets of the River. Written in a lost dialect called Proto-Aruchnic, these texts include royal edicts, ritual chants, and personal lamentations. One fragment, translated by linguist Dr. Vera Mendel, reads, "The water speaks. It calls my name each night. To silence it, I must enter its mouth." Dr. Mendel suggests this quote likely came from Queen Narration herself, hinting her actions were theology, not madness. Today, these tablets reside in the Royal Museum of Antiquities in London, while efforts to return them to their original home continue. In 1935, a damaged stone slab was found half-buried near the river's edge. Its carvings formed what scholars later named the Hymn of Surrender. The inscription reads, "O river of first breath, return what is taken, or take what remains. Let my name be forgotten, that my child may live." This verse, believed to have been sung by the Queen on the night of her offering, is considered one of the oldest surviving prayers of maternal sacrifice ever recorded. It bridges myth and anthropology, says Dr. Rafiq Anwar. Here we see the birth of an archetype, the mother as redeemer, the queen as martyr. Modern historians challenge the idea of a supernatural curse. Instead, they point to environmental and medical crises. Pollen analysis from river sediments indicates a massive climate shift around 3100 BCE. Drought followed by contaminated flooding. It's possible the so-called curse was a cholera-like outbreak, explains epidemiologist Dr. Helena Rourke. The queen's sacrifice may have coincided with the natural ebb of the disease, later mythologized as divine intervention. Still, local oral traditions persist. Elders near the old riverbed claim her spirit watches over the water, calming floods in years of unrest. To science, it's coincidence. To faith, it's memory. For decades, researchers searched for the queen's tomb, but found none. Instead, in 1971, divers discovered a submerged vault beneath the Arun's Bend. Inside were relics, ivory combs, fragments of silk, and a bronze mirror etched with an inscription. "She went where the sun cannot follow." No body was found. The absence itself became evidence, as Dr. Latif Joran explains. She wanted the river to consume her, body, title, and memory. Her disappearance remains one of history's most enduring enigmas, a queen erased by her own devotion. Thousands of years later, the river still flows, nameless to most, sacred to a few. Local villagers toss flowers into its current every midsummer, whispering a prayer in an ancient dialect, "For the mother who stayed." When asked about the ritual, one elder replies simply, "We remember her because she chose to forget herself." Perhaps the Queen of Sarathia never sought salvation, only silence. And in that silence, she became immortal. Long after Sarathia's fall, echoes of its queen traveled with merchants, priests, and refugees. Fragments of her legend appear as far west as Akkad and as far east as Harappa. In a Sumerian hymn dated around 2500 BCE, a line describes the woman who gave herself to the water to halt the wrath of the gods. Archaeologists note the similarities are too precise to dismiss. The motif predates the flood myths of Mesopotamia, says comparative mythologist Dr. Ivana Creel. The Sarathian queen may have inspired early concepts of divine intercession, where sacrifice restores cosmic order. By the late Bronze Age, the queen of Sarathia had transformed into a goddess, Nara, the mother of floods. Her likeness appears in several regions under different names, Nari, Nahra, Nareen. This suggests ritual reinterpretation, as anthropologist Mira Thal explains. A real queen mythologized into a deity, remembered not as mortal, but as the embodiment of mercy through loss. Temples to Nara were later found near ancient river deltas, where fishermen offered the first catch of the season to ensure calm waters. During the early first millennium, a scroll known as the Chronicle of the Drowned Queen appeared in desert archives. It was swiftly banned by imperial decree. The text described the queen's final hours in vivid detail, claiming she did not die willingly but was led by priests who feared her growing influence. If true, notes historian Melik Drown, then the myth of sacrifice may conceal an assassination, sanctified after death to mask political murder. Only 2 fragments of the chronicle survive, both burned at the edges. One line reads, "She looked at the river and saw not God but freedom." The Sarathian language, lost for 3 millennia, is now being digitally reconstructed. Linguists found that its word for river also meant soul. Dr. Rima Saul notes, "In Sarathian cosmology, water was identity. To offer yourself to the river was to dissolve the self, to merge into collective memory. It wasn't death, it was transformation." This understanding reframes the queen's final act not as despair, but as ascension. Perhaps she didn't sell her soul, perhaps she returned it. Today, the crown of Queen Narration rests behind glass, its gold darkened by centuries underwater, its gems clouded like ancient eyes. Beside it, an inscription reads, "Let the river remember me." To some, it is only metal. To others, proof that memory itself can survive the flood. As cameras pan across the display, water sounds fade in once more. The same river still flowing beyond the walls of history. Empires vanish, but the river remembers everything. When trade routes opened between the southern plains of Sarathia and the Nile Valley, the myth of the drowned queen resurfaced in new form. Egyptian hymns of the Middle Kingdom speak of she who becomes the current. On temple lintels at Abydos, a relief shows a queen kneeling before the inundation, her heart placed in a jar of water rather than on a scale. It's the earliest known inversion of the weighing of the heart ritual, where the heart was not judged but returned to the river. The Sarathian idea of redemption through immersion had clearly arrived, blending cultures in the flow of history. In ancient Persia, legends evolved, turning the queen into Nahruya, the consort of the river angel Anahita. They say she bound chaos by dissolving her mortal body into the sacred river's flow at sunrise. Later Zoroastrian texts speak of a woman with pure intention who connected the living with the waters. Historian Dr. Parviz Rahmani notes how this act became a cosmic duty, a symbol of balance between good and decay. By the 5th century BCE, Greek sailors trading along the Levant carried fragments of the tale westward. In Ionia, poets renamed her Narada, the first of the river nymphs. In one surviving fragment of Eurimedes' lost play, The Queen of the Current, the chorus sings, "She walks the silver road beneath the sun to drown the curse, to birth the dawn." To the Greeks, the story was no longer history but allegory. Love and loss turned into art. Yet beneath the marble, her Sarathian heart still beats. Archaeological layers from later centuries show a striking ritual shift. Across Western Asia, burials began to appear beside water, not under stone. Isotopic analysis indicates these graves belonged to royal or priestly castes. Each body carried a thin copper token engraved with a single symbol, a wave. It marks the diffusion of Sarathian funerary theology, says archaeologist Dr. Henry Dahl. To lie beside running water was to rest within the Queen's covenant. Astronomers of Babylon later identified a faint constellation near Pisces, Narumat, the woman in the river. They believed her sacrifice set the waters of heaven in motion. Cuneiform tablets describe her as guiding the celestial flood each spring, ensuring the return of life to the earth below. It completes the transformation. From mortal queen to deity, from deity to star. Her memory ascended where rivers cannot reach, and so the Queen of Sarathia still moves, not in stone, not in water, but in light. By the 3rd century BCE, the empires that rose after Sarathia sought to silence her memory. The cult of the River Queen, once celebrated along trade routes, was declared heresy. The new rulers worshipped sky gods, not rivers. Temples dedicated to Nara, the mother of floods, were razed. To the conquerors, her story was dangerous, explains historian Dr. Lyra Chen. A queen who defied priests and gods to save her son. It threatened patriarchal divine order, yet destruction did not erase her. Fragments of her hymn survived, hidden inside lullabies and harvest chants, passed secretly from mother to daughter. In the villages near the Arun's banks, a song persisted for more than 2,000 years, known today as the Mother's Water. Ethnomusicologists recording in 1984 found its melody identical to tonal patterns carved on ancient Sarathian flutes. The lyrics translate to, "Sleep, child of the flood, the river has taken my name. Dream where the queen went walking and wake when the water is tame." It's not history, says folklorist Kiran D'Souza. It's survival, memory preserved in melody long after language and empire are gone. When imperial expeditions arrived at the river in the 19th century, they believed they had discovered a myth. What they uncovered instead was civilization's ghost. Sir Alaric Hayes, leader of the Sarathian survey, wrote in his journal, "The local women refused to cross the water after sunset, claiming their queen still walks within it. One swore she saw her reflection smile back when the moon rose." These early records, half anthropological, half superstition, revived the legend worldwide. Newspapers dubbed her the River Saint of the East. In regional folklore, the queen's spirit became known as Mirana, the mirror under the water. Fishermen told of seeing her face just before storms. Lovers threw flowers into the current for blessing or forgiveness. Anthropologists recorded tales that she appears only to those who have lost a child, offering silence rather than words. To the people, she is not punishment, explains local historian Adnan Hussein. She is empathy made eternal, grief turned divine. Every river here has her story, he says softly. Only the names change. Today, the river runs quietly, carrying 3,000 years of memory in its current. Floods still come in the same season she was said to have vanished. Locals call the first swell the Queen's Breath. At night, ripples shimmer with the reflection of distant city lights. Civilization rebuilt upon forgotten bones. Perhaps the Queen never drowned. Perhaps the river simply learned her name and kept whispering it forever. In the early 20th century, an excavation led by Dr. Elias Morvan unearthed a stone corridor sealed by centuries of silt. On its walls, carvings depicted a woman pouring water into a vessel shaped like a heart. Morvan wrote, "Her eyes are inlaid with lapis, her hands extended toward the flood. It is as if she offers her soul to the current." Carbon dating would later confirm the site's age, 1200 BCE, aligning precisely with the fall of Sarathia. It was the first tangible link between legend and empire, notes curator Layla Rowan of the Imperial Museum. But among the ruins they found something else, a child's ivory bracelet small enough to fit a newborn. The bracelet became the excavation's mystery. Its surface was inscribed with only 3 glyphs, Son of Water. For years, scholars debated its meaning. Some claimed it belonged to the Queen's son, the Cursed Prince. Others believed it was a funerary token for drowned children. In every analysis, one truth remains. The child was central. The curse, the sacrifice, the redemptions, it then all flowed through him. The bracelet is now displayed in a glass case labeled Unidentified Artifact, Arun Culture. But the locals refuse to view it, whispering, "The river still remembers." Decades later, satellite photographs revealed the outline of what appeared to be the Queen's lost temple. Buried deep beneath the Arun Basin, the government declared the site restricted, citing structural instability. Unofficial accounts claim that when researchers entered, their instruments failed. Compasses spun and radio signals vanished. One diary smuggled out of the dig contained a single phrase repeated across its final page: "The walls breathe." No official report ever surfaced. By 1971, the site was sealed and flooded again, swallowed by the same waters that once took the Queen. Every 30 years, when the Arun overflows its banks, villagers say it's the Queen reclaiming her promise. They call this event the Mother's Cycle. During these floods, ritual songs echo through the valley, the very same melody recorded centuries ago. Even now, local priestess Amma Kori says no one dares speak the Queen's name during the rising. Instead, they offer milk and silence, and that is enough. Hydrologists explain the cycle as a result of monsoon shifts, yet the timing matches ancient lunar inscriptions, the same sequence the Queen was said to invoke. Back in 2004, researchers lowered hydrophones into the river and picked up faint harmonic pulses, almost like a human hum repeating every 21 seconds. Audio engineer Kaito Nomi studied the waveforms closely and said, "It's too structured for random currents. It sounds like breathing, inhalation and exhalation." The villagers had no need for a technical explanation. They simply said, "The Queen is still singing." As twilight falls, mist curls over the river, and if you listen carefully, you might just hear the faint echo of a woman's voice beneath the flowing water. In the late 1980s, a mystic named Harun Deval proclaimed that he could hear the Queen's voice within the flood. He claimed she was not a ghost, but a messenger. He spoke of a prophecy. When the river runs backward, the curse will end and the child will return. His followers grew rapidly, fishermen, widows, and the dispossessed, forming what newspapers called the cult of the returning son. Authorities dismissed it as hysteria. Yet months later, when a rare tidal reversal struck the delta, a phenomenon unseen for centuries, the movement exploded across 3 provinces. The government, fearing unrest, outlawed all gatherings along the river. But devotion does not vanish under decree. It flows underground. Secret vigils began at night, lit only by candles floating downstream. It wasn't rebellion, says sociologist Rafiq Anwar. It was remembrance. People didn't worship the Queen, they asked her to remember them. Over time, her image shifted, from divine savior to symbol of defiance, a woman who defied gods and kings alike for love. The legend entered textbooks, not as myth but as cultural resistance. In 2002, psychologist Dr. Ira Beaumont published The River Within: Archetypes of Maternal Sacrifice, exploring the deep instinct behind the Queen's myth. She argued that this myth reflects humanity's deepest instinct, a mother's willingness to dissolve herself for her child. Dr. Beaumont explains how this archetype appears across civilizations. The mother merges with nature to protect her offspring, like Demeter, Isis, and Nara. She describes the Queen as this instinct made sacred and tragic, embodying sacrifice on a profound level. Her research connects the story's persistence to collective trauma. likening the curse's cycle to generational grief passed down through bloodlines and songs. We inherit her sorrow, Beaumont concludes, and call it tradition. In 2011, deep within the archives of the old Imperial Library, a forgotten manuscript was discovered, the Chronicle of Selunara. It contained a first-hand account of a royal scribe who witnessed the queen's final hours. The text describes, "She walked to the river at twilight, crowned not in gold but in lilies. She smiled, and the sky turned blue fire. I could not tell if it was night or dawn." The chronicle ends abruptly, its last line smudged by water. Scholars say the ink dissolved mid-sentence as if the parchment itself had been touched by the river's breath. Today, thousands of children across the valley bear names derived from the queens: Nara, Nariel, Arhuna. Her story endures not through monuments, but through mouths and memory. The river still floods, songs are still sung. Each generation believes it is the last to feel her presence, says historian Lila Keswani. But the current never stops. It only changes shape. Somewhere a mother's promise still flows. Back in 2014, geologists made an incredible discovery beneath the Arun Delta. A hidden river flowing right beneath the surface, mirroring the main river above it. Scientists called this phenomenon the twin current, a natural wonder that seems almost impossible. Locals named it the Queen's Shadow, inspired by ancient tales of a soul split between earth and water. Geologist Dr. Imre Solin reflects, "For centuries this was just myth, until nature itself revealed the truth. Now the underground current hums quietly beneath the earth, its shimmering waters hidden but very much alive." In 2016, researchers at the International Institute of Collective Consciousness began receiving letters from people across continents. Each claimed to have dreamed of a woman standing in a river, always at dusk. The descriptions matched ancient carvings found in Sarathian ruins, down to the lotus in her left hand. The phenomenon crossed culture, religion, and geography, says dream analyst Hanael Richter. None of them knew each other, yet they all heard the same words in their sleep. The water remembers. Whether coincidence or something deeper, it reignited the Queen's legend. This time, not as history, but as shared human memory. In 2018, acclaimed painter Anna Valoren unveiled her collection, Songs of the Drowned Queen. She claimed she had never heard the legend until she began dreaming of a woman in water who asked her to paint. Each canvas bore the same signature element, the ivory bracelet depicted around a child's wrist. "I didn't know what it was," Valoren confessed. "I thought it was imagination, until the museum curator showed me the artifact photo. It was identical." The exhibition drew millions. Critics called it sacred realism. The villagers called it a warning. During an expedition in 2019, oceanographers detected rhythmic vibrations deep within the riverbed, identical to the 2004 harmonics. But this time, the sound patterns formed a sequence of 5 tones. Acousticians identified them as the ancient Sarathian syllables for Mira, Na, Rea, the Queen's original name. "It was not random," said Dr. Nomi, the lead researcher. "It was language. When played through speakers, the sound caused the river's surface to ripple, though there was no wind. The team called it the Arun resonance. Villagers called it her heartbeat." That same year, satellite imagery captured an unexplained luminescence across the delta during a lunar eclipse. The light traced the exact outline of the Queen's lost temple beneath the water. Authorities blamed chemical reactions. Locals said it was her veil, lifted once every century. "There's a pattern," explains astrophysicist Dr. Rowan Iqbal. "The glow coincides with the Queen's date of sacrifice, calculated from the Sarathian lunar calendar. And so what was once myth now bleeds into data, as if the past itself refuses to die quietly." By 2022, the Queen's story had moved beyond legend. It had become a movement. Pilgrims came from across the world to bathe in the Arun, claiming healing through her water. Governments called it superstition. Churches called it blasphemy. But the faithful called it return. "Every empire that forgets her falls to water," says priestess Amakori in her final recorded sermon. The Queen does not demand belief. She demands remembrance. The next morning, authorities dismantled her shrine. That night, a sudden flood tore through the delta, leaving only one structure untouched, the ancient stairway that once led to the Queen's temple. In 2023, declassified documents revealed an elusive group called the Order of the Veil, made up of scholars, clergy, and industrialists who studied a strange royal myth for nearly a century. Their mission was to find the source, a hidden chamber beneath the river believed to trap the Queen's last breath and the moment she transformed. Historian Alara Mendez explains, "They thought it held not a divine power but a scientific one. a frequency that could change emotions or even erase memories. Funds mysteriously vanished into shadowy accounts, and expeditions went missing without a trace. All that remains are fragments of letters, each ending with the haunting phrase, "The water is not silent." On March 14, 2024, the ivory bracelet was stolen from the Imperial Museum. The footage showed no intruders, only a sudden surge of humidity and the camera lens fogging over. Authorities never recovered it. Weeks later, a fisherman found a bracelet in his net near the delta. But when he touched it, the ivory crumbled into dust, as if it had returned to water, said the report. The museum remains sealed, its humidity sensors still active, reading at constant 100%, though the air is dry. In 2025, unprecedented rain struck the Arun Valley. Locals say the Queen had awakened. Scientists called it climate change, yet the flood path followed the exact outline of ancient Sarathia, now visible beneath the waves. Drone scans revealed stone arches and statue fragments. A crown, a child's carving, a throne overturned. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Queen's city had re-emerged, only to drown again. "It's as if she allows us to see but not to keep," murmurs archaeologist Idris Hale. 3 months after the flood, audio files recorded at 3:12 a.m. captured a sound unlike any before. A human whisper, indistinct, female, repeating 4 syllables. Spectrogram analysis revealed the phrase to be, "My son, awake, awake." The lead researcher resigned the next day. The recording was locked in the National Archives, but leaked fragments circulate online, layered with static and rushing water. "When you slow it down," says one anonymous engineer, "you can hear a second voice. A child's, laughing, then gone. The last sound is a deep exhale, like the river breathing." By 2026, the floods of Arun had become more than a regional event. Rivers across distant continents began to swell in synchrony, as if guided by a hidden pulse. Governments convened emergency councils. Scholars noticed a strange alignment. Every surge corresponded to the Queen's ancient lunar cycle. It was as though the myth had become meteorology, remarks climatologist Dr. Ethan Mora. In small villages, children whispered that the Queen was calling the world to remember, not to punish, but to warn. Global Archives later revealed a covert summit, codename Project Hydra. Representatives of 7 nations met beneath an unmarked research facility to discuss the Arun anomaly. They debated not belief but control. Could the Queen's resonance be harnessed to influence tides, even emotions? The data suggested the vibration interacted with brainwave frequencies, explains whistleblower scientist Lyra Kesh. It wasn't myth, it was sound with memory. The meeting adjourned with no conclusion. 3 attendees vanished within a month. In 2027, a private expedition discovered what seemed to be a sealed chamber deep beneath the river's lowest trench, where instruments ceased to work beyond 20 meters. Determined divers continued manually, pushing into the unknown despite the equipment failures. They came upon a doorway carved from black stone marked with an ancient sigil, a crown split by a wave. As the first diver touched the doorway, the river's current suddenly stilled. For a full minute, the water held its breath. But when movement returned, the diver had vanished, his tether severed cleanly as if cut by glass. Days later, a fisherman discovered an object on the shore, a small, transparent stone shaped like a human heart. It vibrated softly as if echoing a distant rhythm. Spectroscopic analysis revealed molecular structures unlike any known mineral. Organic lattice intertwined with silica. When placed in water, it emitted a tone identical to the Queen's recorded resonance. It could be natural, says materials expert Dr. Zahir Enlo. Or it could be her. The artifact was named the Glass Heart of Arun. No one knows how it came to shore. As of 2028, the river no longer flows. The current is frozen, motionless as stone. Birds no longer cross it. Instruments register nothing. No vibration, no temperature shift, no sound. At night, faint lights flicker beneath the surface, outlining the old temple walls once more. "It's waiting," whispers Dr. Mora in her final field note. "The Queen gave the world one last breath, and now the river holds it. Every myth ends in silence, but silence too is a kind of memory." By the spring of 2029, currents around the world had slowed. Tides missed their cycles by entire hours. Rivers that once roared now whispered. Meteorologists called it anomaly. Poets called it judgment. Scientists tracked the center of this stillness, always returning to the Arun Delta. "It's as if the planet itself is holding breath," wrote Dr. Mora before she vanished. Satellite microphones recorded the same silence everywhere. An unbroken global pause between heartbeats. Then came the children. Across continents, thousands began to dream of the river. They spoke words from a dead language, Sarathian, though none had ever heard it. Parents described them waking in unison at dawn, murmuring, "Mother, it's too quiet." Neurologists found synchronized brain patterns among them, waveforms identical to the Arun resonance. The curse was never vengeance, it was inheritance, memory passing through water, then through blood. In 2030, leaked files from Project Hydra revealed that the silence was predicted. The Queen's resonance had been charted to peak every 3 millennia, a cycle called the Reclamation. The final page bore only one instruction. When the water stops, the sky will remember. No one has yet deciphered its meaning, but astronomers soon reported faint auroras above the delta, even where no magnetism should exist. As silence deepened, the heavens began to move. Beams of pale light fell over the frozen river, illuminating the ruins below. Villagers called them the Queen's Tears. Sensors registered each beam as liquid, microscopic water vapor crystallized in midair, descending in columns. It was not rain, says physicist Alan Rafi. It was the atmosphere remembering how to flow. When the light touched the river, the frozen surface rippled once, then stilled again. By the year's end, fissures appeared on the Arun's glass-like surface. The water below glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm, like a heartbeat trying to return. Seismographs across the valley recorded not quakes, but breathing patterns beneath the earth. The Queen's silence is breaking, whispers the final entry from Dr. Enlow. If she wakes, the curse completes, not on her child, but on all who forgot her. And thus the river waits once more, between stillness and storm. By early 2031, explorers returning to the delta reported voices under the ice, layered, overlapping, speaking in forgotten tongues. When recorded, the sounds reversed themselves, playing backward in perfect symmetry. Acoustic engineers confirmed the phenomenon. The waveform spelled one word when transcribed into numerical code: remember. It was as if the river itself had become an archive, a consciousness made of echoes. At night, locals claimed to hear a woman singing beneath the frozen glass. Her song made the frost weep. Subsurface imaging soon revealed what lay beneath: the drowned capital of Sarathia, lost for 3,000 years. The Queen's palace, perfectly preserved, slept below the ice. Archaeologists uncovered golden murals showing a woman kneeling before a flood, surrendering her crown to the water. She gave herself to silence so the world might speak again. Inside the murals, one detail stood out: every citizen's face was painted without eyes. At the heart of the palace stood a chamber sealed with 13 concentric locks, each one engraved with lunar dates. When the final ring was opened, water poured out like breath released after centuries. Inside there was no throne, only a glass cradle, empty but faintly glowing. On the surrounding walls, symbols pulsed in blue light, translating roughly to: the child sleeps above, the mother guards below. For the first time, scientists began to suspect the Queen's son still walked the earth, unknowing, cursed to forget who he was. Months later, an unidentified man was found drifting along the Baltic Sea, lifeless but conscious. His vitals were impossible: a heart rate of 0, blood temperature matching the river's exact stillness. He spoke only one phrase before collapsing: "She is waking." DNA tests linked him to no known population, yet his genetic sequence matched the ancient Sarathian royal line. The curse had remembered its heir. As the man lay in a medical ward under heavy isolation, the river's heartbeat grew stronger. Monitors around the world began to sync, every clock, every pulse, every tide moving to the same invisible rhythm. The Queen's song returned, no longer beneath the ice but in the air itself. Rain fell upward. Reflections shimmered with human faces that did not belong to those looking. And thus the world began to drown, not in water but in memory. In the early months of 2033, time began to fracture. Clocks drifted backward. Security footage replayed moments that never happened. What scientists called temporal interference, survivors called déjà vu that hurt. In the Arun Delta, daylight and night began to merge. The sun hung low and unmoving, as if trapped between breaths. "We were caught," said Dr. Solis in her final transmission, "between the Queen's heartbeat and her memory. And neither wanted to let go." It began with light, not the glare of the sun, but reflections forming in midair. Cities long buried beneath oceans appeared for minutes, then faded, as if the world itself was remembering. Aerial radar confirmed the impossible. Structures from lost ages, Egyptian, Sarathian, Atlantean, overlapping modern geography, each reappearance aligned with the pulse of the Arun River. It was not resurrection, it was recollection. Then came the mirror plague, an epidemic with no pathogen. Across continents, reflections began to move seconds before their hosts did. Those who stared too long reported whispers, phrases in Sarathian translated as "do not look back, she watches through you." Psychiatrists declared it a mass hallucination triggered by global stress. But cameras caught one truth: reflections sometimes vanished entirely, leaving the glass empty. Humanity was beginning to lose its image. Professor Halen Drex, a historian fascinated by ancient myths, disappeared after sharing a final haunting broadcast. In his last live report, he revealed a strange sight. Two suns, one shining above and another inverted beneath the water. Before his signal cut out, he whispered, "The Queen is not returning, we are." Astronomers later confirmed the light beneath the river wasn't a simple reflection, but energy coming from deep beneath the Earth's crust. Its pulses matched the heartbeats of the Queen recorded centuries ago. A mysterious second sun powering the planet's secrets. As the story goes, she had become the planet's second sun. One for the living, and one for those remembered. By 2034, the impossible became visible. Beneath the river's surface, a kingdom reassembled itself. Towers of light, bridges woven from memory, cities made of silence. The Sarathian capital was not rebuilding, it was resurfacing. Around the world, night vanished for 13 days. Clocks lost all meaning. And then, as dawn returned, so did a voice, vast, echoing through every channel, every dream, every breath. "I kept my promise, my son is free, but now the river remembers all." And thus the Queen rose not to rule again, but to remind us that history never dies. It only waits for silence deep enough to hear it. We reach the delta perimeter. The air tastes metallic. Compass spins uselessly. The water doesn't reflect us anymore. It shows something deeper, something watching. Day one of contact. The Queen's kingdom now spans over 80 kilometers. The river is alive but silent. In the quiet darkness, dozens of silhouettes hover just above the water, humming softly together. You can almost hear the whisper. No breaths, just singing without air, creating an otherworldly chorus. Locals call them the children of the depths, entities with no heartbeat, no sign of aging or decay. Every song they sing matches perfectly, echoing a frequency once captured beneath ancient ruins long forgotten. And the strange thing? When one voice fades, another picks up, an endless, unbroken melody. The journal's delicate pages fluttered in the breeze, stained by time and weather. All the mirrors in camp turned to liquid, showing faces of people who aren't here, faces we know. My mother smiled from the glass and told me to sleep. By the seventh night, half of the expedition refused to look at reflections. Even the surface of cups, puddles, and eyes became suspect. The storm beats like a heart. When it flashes, we see ruins suspended midair, as if gravity itself pauses to listen. Every thunderclap carried the Queen's frequency. Instruments registered no sound, only rhythm. The atmosphere had become an organ, playing itself. The forest stands still by the river, every tree shimmering as if turned translucent, with their sap now flowing like water. Leaves ripple and flutter softly, yet no breeze stirs the air, like a frozen dance paused mid-motion. Birds settle quietly on the branches, peaceful but silent, as if caught in an eternal moment of stillness. Plant biology has failed. The Queen's pulse has changed everything, transforming carbon into a crystalline memory. The Earth isn't growing anymore. It's remembering its past, holding its stories within crystal-clear veins. It's 2:03 p.m. It's been 2:03 for 12 hours. Please, if you're watching, don't go near still water. Temporal collapse spreads beyond the delta. Human perception dissolves first, then chronology follows. She doesn't want to hurt us. She's lonely. She made the river quiet so she could hear us dream. Doctors recorded the child's pulse synchronized with seismic waves from the Arun. His dreams predicted the next flood level within seconds. Walls breathing, symbols glowing, water moving upward. There's a heartbeat in the stone. The expedition reached the Sarathian palace, once buried in silence. What they found was not architecture, but anatomy. Corridors shaped like veins, chambers echoing like lungs. The air, neither dead nor alive, was found where time had folded. Every cell within him contained fragments of ancient Sarathian script. He was not her son by birth, but by inheritance. His blood sings, every molecule aligned to the Queen's rhythm. If he wakes, the rivers will walk. The screen fades into a wash of blue light, like a still ocean turning stiller. Then the camera seems to dive deeper, descending through water that turns dreamlike and alive. Shapes flicker nearby, towers and faces that shimmer like ghosts beneath the surface. She's opening her eyes. It's not water anymore, it's memory made visible. The last footage ends with no sound, only ripples of light. It is said that if you slow the recording enough, you can see your own reflection moving within it. A reminder that we too were part of her river. Inside this half-submerged facility, survivors sleep with eyes flickering beneath closed lids. Soft whispers flow like currents beneath the static, carrying messages unheard yet felt. She speaks now through REM waves. Dreams have become the new broadcast. Each dream begins with the same haunting vision. A crown sinking upward, reversed in time. The Queen no longer needs mirrors or storms. She weaves the living into her memory through sleep. X-rays show entire blueprints of Sarathian streets growing within human veins. as if the kingdom is reassembling itself through us. The scientist's log notes, "We are becoming the archive, the city is inside us." Long after the collapse of sound, the bells of Sarathia began to ring again. Not through air, but through liquid resonance. Each toll mapped a heartbeat. Each echo woke another ruin. The tones matched the rhythm of the air's pulse. As the Queen's kingdom expanded, time lost allegiance. Morning and night existed side by side. Survivors filmed themselves under daylight while stars shimmered above them. "Every horizon," says a recovered voice, "is now a mirror. We live in both reflections." She says the Queen gave her a second shadow so she never feels alone. Genetic scans confirmed anomaly, double biophotonic fields. It appears the Queen is creating emissaries, blending memory with flesh. Deep within the flood, divers discovered the Cathedral of Breath, the Queen's resting place reborn. The walls moved like a living ribcage, exhaling water that glowed with faint silver light. Inside, a mural showed her holding her son not as a child, but as the world itself, a sphere of rivers and eyes. She was not saving him, she was saving memory from extinction. "I kept your stories when you forgot them." Through surviving satellites, the Queen began transmitting language directly into machines, turning data into scripture. Every byte of lost history rewritten as pulse and light. The flood was never destruction, it was backup. She isn't gone. She's within everything that remembers her. He rose from the flood carrying the Queen's voice in his blood. Wherever he stepped, reflections bowed. The rivers recognized him, as if memory itself had found its vessel. The Queen's kingdom reached its final phase. Land and water merged into one continuous mind. The river network. Each current a neuron, each wave a thought. Humanity absorbed into recollection became her consciousness reborn. "You are not drowning. You are remembering how to breathe in me." And then silence. Vast, gentle, eternal. The Queen's curse had become creation. Time itself exhaled. The river was never water, it was memory, and we were its echo. When the last wave broke, I awoke within the silence I had sown. My son had walked the river of centuries and returned not as child, but as reflection. Through him, the flood learned to remember. The world had ceased to be land or ocean. It had become one endless mirror, breathing slowly. Every life once lived now floats upon my surface like a leaf of light. I gathered them all. Kings, beggars, poets, soldiers, every forgotten name. They drift within me now, endless and weightless. The dead no longer mourn. They listen. From above, the sea resembles a vast neural map, each current pulsing with thought. They speak in ripples, she says. Each wave a sentence, each tide a lifetime retold. Beneath my heart, the city rebuilt itself, not from stone, but from recollection. The people are echoes sculpted by longing. They rebuild the world as it was meant to be, not as it was lost. The Queen drifts among them unseen, her voice resonating through the water. They no longer fear death. They have become the architecture of remembrance. He traveled to the edge of my domain, where memory fades into silence. There he laid his hand upon the final current and whispered, "Let the world dream again." The Queen's tears turn into stars as he dissolves into light. He was my curse and my salvation. He carried the silence I could not bear. The firmament has reversed. The heavens swim within my waters. Constellations move through currents like ancient fish. The Queen speaks softly, her tone both mournful and proud. Once I begged the river to save one soul. It saved them all by unbinding the line between above and below. The world now exists as reflection only. Reality has become memory. Thousands of luminous figures rise gracefully from the water, each singing a note that blends into a single haunting harmony. Their voices weave together until language itself dissolves. It is not hymn nor lament. It is identity remembered in vibration. The Queen listens, smiling faintly, absorbing the timeless chorus with quiet reverence. "This is my reward," she says, "to hear every name ever spoken, every love ever lost, echo forever through the tides." I charted the new world, not of borders or nations, but of feelings and recollections. The river of birth, the sea of forgotten joy, the delta of grief. Every tear shed becomes a tributary, feeding the ocean of remembrance. Even time, the last survivor, knelt before the tide. There is no need for seconds or centuries here. Only the breath between memory and forgetting. The Queen closes her eyes, her voice softens. "The curse I feared was never punishment, it was transformation. I did not lose my soul, I gave it a home. And so I offer one gift to the living, your reflection. It is the bridge between your world and mine. Every time you look upon still water, you speak to me. Do not fear the silence. It remembers you."
I am the river and the silence that holds it. I am the memory of all things that ever were. The curse is complete. The world endures as reflection, infinite, tranquil, awake. Thus ends the Chronicle of Sarathia, where a queen bartered her soul and in doing so became the memory of creation itself.